Kenneth, we can start. Over to you, please.
Oke, thank you. Thank you. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu. Terima kasih sudah join kita di sesi webinar hari ini. Kita host dengan tim SimplAI dan tim dari Kalyana juga. Hari ini kita akan membahas topik yang mungkin pada saat sekarang cukup relevan untuk bisnis-bisnis enterprise di Indonesia, yaitu mungkin penggunaan Agentic AI, mungkin dari desain sampai dengan deployment dan production, bagaimana menggunakan Agentic AI di bisnis. Jadi mungkin dari demo, kan hanya dari fase demo sampai menjadi sebuah kemampuan yang dapat digunakan oleh bisnis, sebuah superpower mungkin kita bisa sebut yang digunakan oleh bisnis dan benar-benar membawa benefit dan value di bisnis. Mungkin satu hal setelah dari introduction ini, webinar ini kita host dalam bahasa Inggris, tapi jika ada pertanyaan bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris, tolong dimasukkan ke kolom chat saja. Pada saat sekarang banyak organisasi sudah menggunakan tools AI, tapi ketika mungkin kita sampai di satu titik di mana kita mau menggunakan teknologi AI ini dalam production, banyak berubah pertanyaannya, apakah bukan hanya menjadi AI dapat mengerjakan pekerjaannya atau tidak, tapi sebetulnya kita sudah mengarah ke use case apa yang bisa memberikan value nyata di dalam bisnis. Apa challenge atau yang membuat sulit kita mengembangkan AI atau memperluas adopsi AI di dalam sebuah organisasi besar. Bagaimana cara kita orkestrasi atau mungkin menganyam agent, sistem, dan juga manusia dalam sistem agentic AI. Satu hal juga yang mungkin sering terlewat yaitu governance. Apa yang diperlukan supaya AI tidak hanya terbatas sebagai eksperimen atau pilot saja, namun dapat menjadi sesuatu yang real dan memberi value yang nyata di dalam bisnis. Di sesi ini Kalyana hadir sebagai partner lokal dari SimplAI di Indonesia. Jadi kita akan membantu mungkin jika ada yang tertarik, jika ada customer untuk kebutuhan spesifik ke kebutuhan lokal atau implementasinya juga akan dibantu oleh kami juga. Oke, mungkin sekian dulu untuk pembuka sesi ini. Okay, over to you, SimplAI team. If we could start with a quick demo of what SimplAI is and sort of maybe give an introduction to all our attendees here on just a quick walkthrough of what SimplAI is.
Santosh, you want to take this and then I'll quickly move the slides accordingly.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Santosh. I head strategy at SimplAI. We also have Shashank on the call who heads our marketing. So a bit about SimplAI. You can imagine SimplAI as a complete operating system for enterprises for Agentic AI. When I say operating system, it's a truly operating system. And the reason is, right, we believe for any enterprise to operationalize AI within their enterprise, they require 6 pillars. And that's what we bring, right? Everyone talks about orchestration, for example, multi-agentic orchestration, autonomous agents, voice orchestration, workflow orchestration for process automations, etc. Yes, that is the central pillar to the platform. Again, all of this comes in low code, no code. So enterprises can start building these use cases very easily. But more importantly, today, when we work with enterprises, we see that enterprises are failing to move these applications into production. And that's where the other 5 pillars come into play, right? So on the platform, you find all of this embedded directly as a very native features. Security, for example, right? How are you bringing the data into the application? Because these are models that are using the data. That means data needs to be encrypted at rest and transit. Role-based access controls, attribute-based access controls, everything is there. And second, more importantly, governance, right? How are we basically governing these applications? Whether it's audit trials, human in the loop, guardrails, which are safety controls, and entire lifecycle management, right? How is your application performing reliably, cost effectively, and latency? So you need to completely govern these applications at a very nth level, right? That's what you find it on the platform. Then comes the compliances. Today, no enterprise wants to deploy any platform if they don't have certifications like SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, ISO, apart from other regulatory compliances at a country level, right? So all of those things are there, and moreover, every enterprise has their own compliances, which you can bring those as policies into the platform and kind of add them as guardrails. The fifth part is scalability and deployment, because when enterprises deploy any application, any agentic application, it can be a simple conversational bot, it can be workflow automation, they want that to work at scale. And moreover, every enterprise has their own needs, right, in terms of infrastructure environments. They might be on hyperscalers, they might be on on-prem or air gap. So we are cloud agnostic and model agnostic. What it means is basically we can deploy in any kind of environment. We can scale immensely depending on their needs, etc., so that you get basically a platform which doesn't support any vendor lock-in, and you're free to kind of use all kinds of infra and models. Sixth, obviously, support and enablement. If you see the current landscape, right, this is a very novice technology. So that means it's always difficult to build these kind of applications. That's where we have something called as an FDE model, what we call as a forward deployed engineering model, where we help enterprises to kind of quickly start with a couple of use cases, at the same time enable their teams on the platform so that they can start building complex use cases, right? So one is basically helping you adopt, second is also enabling your teams to kind of build new use cases, right? So the idea is basically how we can kind of show you ROI while owning the end-to-end outcomes. Next slide, Shashank. I think before this is our platform demo, right? Probably we can just play the demo so that you get a complete understanding of what we just spoke, right? In terms of the platform being a complete operating system and a full lifecycle management for any application development and deployment. Please go ahead, Shashank.
Welcome to the SimplAI platform demo. SimplAI doesn't just deploy agents, it manages the entire enterprise lifecycle of agentic orchestration. To orchestrate an agent, go to the Agents tab. You'll see two orchestration modes, Harness and Planning. Harness mode lets you add skills and delegate tasks to purpose-built sub-agents. Planning mode breaks down goals and creates a structured plan. From there, you can add knowledge bases and tools. In the Additional Features tab, you can add context windows for longer conversations, file upload, and citations, so you always know where the agent pulled its information from. Memory is one of the advanced features that makes multi-agent orchestration seamless. There are three types: in-context, agent, and resource-based memory. Setting it up is straightforward. You choose what to include or exclude. For example, you control how long your agent should remember a chat, a task, or any context. You can always toggle user memory on or off. This helps the agent pick up on tone, language, and recurring details. So if your agent is talking to a credit analyst, a business analyst, or someone on the client side, the tone and key details get adjusted and reused, just like with agent memory. This improves the agent's output. It knows what's going on and adapts as things change. You also have reflection. Reflection is a self-improving loop. You can set it up to trigger after a certain number of runs. Each time the agent runs, it checks whether the information is accurate, correct, and complete. It learns the user's context, questions, and tone, and keeps improving based on feedback. If something gets flagged, the agent updates accordingly. One of the most important steps is setting up your custom configurations when creating an agent. You do this by clicking the config. Most enterprises have several environments. Each one might have different authentication rules, user access, or time zones. Take a look at those. For a simple key-based environment, you can control who gets access. You can also create your own custom environment. Just click to add one. Give it a variable name, a short description, and a variable description. Then enable it. That's how you keep your environment secure and ready to share. In SimplAI, agent governance is a top priority. You can enable things like PII leakage and prompt injection checks. Once the agent is created, you can create multiple versions. All versions are listed here. You can review each one. Pick the version you want and publish when you're ready. Next is observability. This shows you how many times the agent has run, how many runs were successful, latency, credits and tokens used, and tool calls. It's all right there. When you click in, you see the full data waterfall for every conversation. That takes observability to a whole new level. You can also go to deployment. This is where you decide how to expose the agent to the outside world via API, webhooks, embed, agent-to-agent, or a third-party app. You can also share it with your team across projects. Before launching, you'll want some test data. Pick any dataset you like. For example, here you're testing whether the agent produces gibberish when it outputs code, how many rows it processed, and what the test score is. A score of 1 means the output is clean, no gibberish. You can compare against previous agents to see how newer iterations are performing over time. You can also evaluate for future use. Every time you run it, a real evaluation happens. And you can apply a scoring label and see how many times it passes, how many times it fails, using both past and future conversations. Now let's look at tools. There's a list of pre-configured tools, and you can pick whichever one you need. For example, the Personalization Outreach tool. Here you see the full orchestration. In this workflow, you start with a LinkedIn URL and add a third-party search to enrich the lead or signal. Once the workflow is set up, the same options apply. You can publish, create multiple versions, save drafts, or run everything at once. You can also set multiple published versions the same way. Extend this to observability and the same information appears. Run count, completion status, credits used, context, utilization, deployments, and evaluation all stay consistent. The orchestration process stays the same too. Even for something like the voice agent, the orchestration is still identical. The main thing that changes is the conversation itself. For the voice agent, you can set the execution mode, choose your LLM, pick your transcriber, adjust your settings, configure text-to-speech, set your voice, and add your base instruction. The pattern stays consistent across the entire lifecycle, from versioning to observability, deployment, and evaluation, all the way through orchestration. That's just one part. You can also go to observability, where a single screen shows all agent runs, voice runs, user feedback, and approvals. This is where humans stay in the loop. For example, you can see the full workflow of a specific agent, from start to finish, including any pending approvals. If something needs human sign-off or there's user feedback, it shows up here. You can give feedback, approve it, or reject it. You can add remarks and view details as needed. The platform also handles team management. You can have multiple users and add someone new by clicking Add New User Invite. You can also check the audit log in detail, filter by date, project, or resource type to see exactly what happened. All of it is available in clean JSON format. Export it and dig into user activity whenever you need to. That's SimplAI.
Yeah, over to you for the next section. Kenneth.
Okay, thanks again to SimplAI team for the intro and the demo. So before we open the floor, this session to audience questions, let's just do a quick connect. Let's just talk about SimplAI and how it applies to the enterprise context in Indonesia. So from lots of our conversations with customers, so it's both from our side and from SimplAI side, the question is no longer just, can we build an agent for this use case? Can we build a demo for this use case? When it comes to the actual development, the more practical questions are, which use cases are worth prioritizing, which we should do first, which we should do later, where do we see the real value, what are the challenges in deploying this technology, and how does the orchestration and governance make the enterprise large-scale deployment adoption more realistic? I'll also start with a few questions that surely the team is going to, our attendees are likely to have at the moment in this moderated Q&A session. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so let's go through a few questions where we are going to talk about roughly in these 6 pillars or main themes that we are going to focus for today. So how does SimplAI help you in help its customers to meet the data sovereignty and data privacy regulation? So it could be from the, especially this is relevant for the regulated industries where they might need to have the data locally in Indonesia for data sovereignty. And also in terms of data privacy, how do we ensure that the data is processed in a manner that's quite relevant to us as we have the new PDP or the data privacy regulations in Indonesia?
Sure. Let me take that question. As I said earlier, right? So the way we have built this platform, right? We have kind of recognized that today enterprises are looking to kind of have walled gardens in terms of data. They don't want to store or give the data to the outside world, right? So the way we have built this entire platform is cloud agnostic, right? What it means is we can actually deploy this entire platform into the customer's infrastructure environment. For example, what it means is, let's say if a customer is using AWS or Azure or GCP from Indonesia region, we just deploy that in that specific region so that it adheres to the sovereignty principles, the digital privacy acts of that particular country, etc. So that can be completely deployed. Two, we can also do the same deployment in on-prem. We were actually speaking to one of the banks in Indonesia previously, right? They said the mandate here is basically we have on-prem environments and we are not even using hyperscalers for Agentic AI. Can you deploy that, right? The answer is yes. We actually can deploy this entire platform within the customer VPC or on-prem or air-gapped. And when we do that, right, none of the data actually goes from that particular environment. So everything is actually stayed within the enterprise environment. And moreover, right, they don't need to use closed source models also. If they have very strict data policies, they can also deploy open source models right from the platform and fine tune those open source models, right? Today, if you see some of the open source models like Quen, DeepSeek, Mistrals of the world, right, are being used by a lot of banks today to kind of control the data policies and privacies apart from the entire cloud environment as well, right? Third aspect to it is how this data is being flown within the application, right? So as I said, every bit of data that actually flows in and out of the system is encrypted, right? Whether the data is at rest or transit, there are a lot of other data measures we take, right, from the security perspective, right? For example, applying old cost policies like AES 256 TLS, etc. All of these protocols are implemented on top of the data so that your data is secured, right? If you're bringing it from third parties as well, right, everything is through secure API calls, which are server-side execution, right? All of those things are there on the platform, which makes the entire platform kind of secure from a data perspective and not all overall level from a sovereignty angle as well.
Okay, thank you, Santosh, for the answer. Let's move on to the next question then. So there's going to be again a lot of the talks here or the challenge here when we move to production is when we have the tightly regulated workflows or the tightly regulated industries. It might be the insurance, for example. So how should customers decide which parts need to be automated, which parts need to require human approval, and sort of how do we make sure that the evidence is captured if we do need to explain how the agent came to a certain decision in a specific, let's say for a specific automation or business case, so that the process owner, the auditor, or maybe the risk governance team can do the review afterwards?
Absolutely. Great question again, Kenneth. So I think if I go back a little bit, right, at the start of the session when we talked about SimplAI being an operating system, the ethos of why we have actually created an operating system is because of this, right? So today enterprises are confused pretty much, right, in terms of what kind of use cases to pick, how do they actually architect, right? But one of the key things that we are able to see is everyone is kind of implementing POCs and they're getting stuck in these pilots, right? One of the key things why that is happening is because of lack of governance or auditability. And moreover, today enterprises are looking at automations more than completely autonomous agents, right? What it means is they require this kind of a placeholder where a human kind of looks into some of the requests, approves them, right? And then moves ahead, right? So they are kind of looking at a semi-autonomous agents, if I would say, right? And for that to happen, you require a very strong governance structure in place, right? It's not just about the orchestration that you have, but how are you orchestrating that entire workflow, right? To not just give intelligence, but have end-to-end outcomes with governance in place, right? And when we talk about governance again, uh, according to us, governance has multiple layers, right? One is the complete audit trail. So, for example, when these agents are using LLMs, right, these are probabilistic model. Why is an agent taking a particular decision? For example, you take a loan workflow. So when loan workflow happens, right, you get a set of loan packet which has 50, 60 documents. And these documents, you extract the information, you basically validate and assess what kind of checks have been passed, and then you can finally take a decision whether a loan should be given to a particular person or not. In this entire journey, what we are seeing with enterprises, especially regulated industries, is they want to kind of automate most of the tasks which are knowledge based, right? But from a approvals perspective, wherever there's an approval that is required, right, whether it's in the mid state or an end state, they want a human in the loop kind of a system where either they do the eyeballing and kind of okay the approval, or basically have an end state where the final decision is left to the human, right? This is what we are seeing, and for that you need to have a proper governance system. When I talk about governance, right, one definitely is the audit trail, the complete workflow, how is it being executed, why the agent has actually taken a particular decision for the human to review. Two, from the application perspective, right, whether the application is performing reliably, right, without any latencies, and at the same time cost effectively. Is the orchestrated application using a lot of tokens or optimized for tokens, etc.? Because today the token economics is real, right? Everyone is struggling to keep up budgets with the model providers, etc. So you need to kind of orchestrate a system which is not just performing reliably, but also very, very cost effective for you, right? So these are some of the considerations we are seeing where enterprises are looking for semi-autonomous systems, but in a very governed and secured way.
Okay, thanks, Santosh. Maybe we have another question that we've prepared is, what if maybe let's say we already have several AI tools, we have something from let's say from different that we've already acquired previously. How do we get them and integrate all of them and prevent those tools or maybe those existing AI agents from becoming siloed and separate deployments? How do we get those existing agents, existing implementations to actually work together?
Absolutely great. See, the enterprises have spent a lot of time in automating a lot of workflows previously as well, right? Today, if you ask the enterprise and to rip and replace all the existing automations or whatever agents they have built on the framework, that is going to be a very challenging task for them, right? And again, it is basically starting from zero. So that's the beauty of SimplAI as a platform. If you look at any of our orchestration workflows in the video, right, whether it's agent orchestration, which is again multi-agents, voice orchestration, or the entire workflow orchestration, it gives you enough bandwidth to kind of have the external systems or other agents integrated, right? On the platform, we natively support A2A and MCP, which are actually meant for any agents and platforms which are more recently built, right? That can be accessible to these protocols, right? Now, second, your traditional AI/ML systems, how are you going to kind of access those applications? We have various ways to do that. Again, we have hard integrations where we have integrated with 300 plus enterprise platforms. You can start bringing the data or the applications that are already existing, or you can do API integration with most of the applications, whether internal, external, right? And third is we also give enough flexibility for enterprises to bring their own piece of code through the Python code snippets or Java code snippets, right? So we have built our own code executor where you can add these steps, right? Where either you can have your own AML logics or any other logic built into the Python code and can access it At the same time, right, you have the flexibility to do the hard integrations on the platform, right, through MCP A2A and APIs as well. So there's considerable room on the platform in terms of how you are bringing the other applications and integrations, right, very easily into the entire orchestration engine.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Santosh. Maybe one thing that we could add before we continue, if there are any questions, feel free to send it in to us or raise your hand. Maybe if we could take the questions if any of from our attendees have any questions. If there are no questions, maybe we have a few more questions that we could go through, maybe just to give our attendees a better idea of where we are at, and maybe just some a bit about the agentic AI. Is that where have you seen the most value that we've gotten from agentic AI? Maybe which use cases, and how would we prioritize and look at how to most effectively deploy and then scale up agentic AI in order to give the most value to the business.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part once?
Sorry, so it's two parts. The first one is like, which use cases have you seen that gave the most value in terms of the agentic AI? Which use cases have been the most effective? And the second part is sort of like, how would you build the pipeline? How would you do the prioritization to ensure that it could scale up from just being at the pilot stage into something that's going to be a business-wide initiative and sort of a strategic power to them?
Got. See, one of the things that we have observed, right? Let me answer the first part first, right? In terms of the use cases, where we have seen the maximum traction or people actually going for these use cases is where there's a lot of dependency on knowledge workers, for example, right? I can take two examples, right? If you look at banking, again, whether it's retail, commercial, etc., you see a lot of banks have kind of roles for loan management, right? Credit analysts, financial analysts, loan managers, etc., right? And all of the lending workflows, for example, credit card workflows, etc., are dependent on these people, even though there were RPS of the world, which was kind of doing certain kind of automation, right? Again, very, very rule-based, very rigid kind of automations, but still on top of it, a lot of banks have put this structure of knowledge workers who were actually doing a lot of manual tasks, etc. Now, the first thing that we are able to see, especially with banks, is they're thinking to kind of integrate these things end to end, obviously with human oversight, with the current crop of employees that they have, but to increase their productivity, right? So the idea is, how do I make my end to end workflow more autonomous, at the same time give more leeway to the knowledge workers who are using it to increase the productivity. For example, right, if my entire team is processing 1,000 loans, right, how do I can make it more accurate, increase my throughput, and increase the productivity, right? And that is where we are seeing a lot of traction. So any workflow in banking or insurance or regulated industries where we see a lot of knowledge workers involved, that is going to get disrupted, because AI is best suited for that, right? To kind of understand how the knowledge is flowing, what kind of integrations are required, workflow knowledge and intelligence is required to kind of automate. That is for the first part. In terms of how these guys are approaching these use cases, definitely today, right, there's only less than 5% of implementation happened in agentic AI, right? We are just seeing this very, very superficial level of adoption today, right, across the regions, whether it's even US, Europe, or Southeast Asia. So having said that, right, so there is no clear metrics of ROI established for a lot of these use cases. In a lot of enterprises, they also start picking use cases based on a certain interest level, etc. But we are kind of seeing a method to this madness, right? And this method to madness is basically coming from more productivity, cost efficiency rather than ROI at this point of time. But at the same time, we strongly feel in the next 6 to 8 months, enterprises would also start establishing ROI frameworks to kind of measure these workflows, right? Especially with the increase in token maxing and token economics coming into picture. They want to more govern this applications more tightly. But at this point of time, what we are seeing is more use cases coming on improving productivity, throughput, cost efficiencies, etc.
Okay. Thank you, Santosh, again for the answer. If there are no questions, if there are any questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat. But if there are no further questions at this stage, let's go move on to the live look at the platform.
Sure, let me just take that. Whatever we discussed, and Santosh spoke about the orchestration governance, and let's say, how do you build an agent and the value out of it? So what we can do is basically walk you through an existing agent, which is a credit analyst agent. So think of a credit analyst lifecycle is like creating a credit proposal for a company in a private equity organization or a lending organization. Now, it usually requires like tens of days of work and multiple like unique kind of redundant actions at that point in time. For example, let's say a credit analyst needs to do a research around um, let's say about the company, right? They need to also go back to the, let's say, last 4 quarter to 4 years, how has been the organizational revenue health, segmented revenue, the cash flows, and everything else. So all of these things are quite complex at any point in time, but let's say how with this agent we can easily create it, and then we'll see the live action. So the way that you create it is basically pick a model, and an orchestration mode, like we discussed before, it basically allows you to create a purposeful agents for a separate skills. Now, if you're let's say aware about the skills are nothing but basically what your inherent knowledge is about. You can basically codify it into an empty file, right? And then start asking it, right? Now, agent profile is basically the prompt. I'll just expand it for you to guys to have a look at it. So think of it, we are basically asking this agent to act as a specialized credit analyst agent who is well versed in understanding the financial audits, annual reports, and investment related documents, right? It also has an access to let's say the external web research available, the audit quotations, etc., and everything. Once each and every critical information is in place, the primary objective and is to basically put it in a human readable format and a shareable format, which can be sort of translated into a document and shared across the leadership, right? How this is built, let's see. Let's say one of the tool. So these are the tools that we have pre-created for this analyst agent, right? For example, a financial spread of the company, right? Summary about the company, right? Credit proposal generator, which generates the final output, right? We'll just check one of the tool that exists today, which is the web research tool. Okay. So think of it, let's say credit agent about the company has to do a lot of research about a company on let's say Google, on Bing, across let's say search tools that are available. So what it does, it basically asks you that, hey, what is the topic is basically the company. What you want to do is to conduct the research, right? It has an LLM step which say ki, hey, let's say I'm going to talk about the company. You have to do a horizontal research about the company, and then give me the clear answers and the unique insights which I can reuse, right? So what it is doing is basically asking a Google search, right, about the query, give the top 10 results, and then through the LLM, it distills the information, the unique insights, and put it back, right? So imagine 1 or 2 days of work can be accomplished in, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes at max, right? Now I'll quickly come back and give you the preview of how it works, right? So think of it, for this, I will ask for, hey, can you please share credit information about Alphabet Inc., which is the parent company of the Google. We have already put it in the databases so that the system understand, and then you can see at live what is the tool that is being sort of called by the agent. So there is a trail of everything. We'll see in the tracing as well, but let's see, this tool is being called right now. In parallel, sync, there are certain actions that are being going on. So let's just wait for it to reply. In the meantime, there are any questions, like happy to take them, or maybe I and Santosh both can take the questions.
I think there's a question, not on this. Probably after this, we can answer those, because we'll deroute everything from this.
Sure. So let me just, can you share credit? I think what it does, it generated a document while we were discussing. So let's just see the document. It's final output of the things that it has done, right? So imagine, let's say, all the critical pieces around doing the account information for a specific organization, right? For the last 4 to 5 years, put it into a tabular format, create an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, everything in a single place. Not only that, create a meaningful insights about the revenues, EBITDA, profits, cash flow, markets, etc. And at the same time, say generating their margin information. So for example, if someone has been in the BFSI sector, they know how important the margins and the ratios are. So it not only stops at, let's say, giving you tabular information and insight, it basically calculates the entire margins, right? And lastly, their profitability trends. And that's how it creates the entire informations about the projected scenarios and everything. Now, if you want to share it, you can just have it as PDF and share it across, right? Now, there are a lot of questions that how do we trust maybe this great financial agent, because it's pretty critical work, right? Of course, it's redundant, but a lot of external pieces of information that basically comes out. So what we can see, we can go to the observability section and then see what has been their information and flow of, let's say, delegation that happens. So from, let's say, the first call of getting the first input, how does it ensure that, hey, what is the next step? So for example, here an LLM call is being called. You can create it into a human readable format. You can clearly see the output, and then what happens next. So each and every information, the steps that it basically call out, is available in a human readable and traceable format here under the tracing section. And you can also basically test this before going it live, right? So usually what happens is you can create a set of queries like a QA would do, ask 10 to 12 critical questions about the credit financial analysis, and then run it to get the score, right? If the score is, let's say, above uh, meaningfully an acceptable score, you can take it and deploy it. Otherwise, you can retune and reprompt the entire prompt as well. Now, this is one part of it, like basically post deployment, pre deployment QA. Post deployment, you can have a continuous evaluation. For example, here we are seeing that keep on evaluating for a gibberish content. So you do not want your clients to get a PDF which does not have a meaningful information, right? So you can always at an individual score in future evaluate it and give you the score live, right? And then you can always have a continuous check around your agent. So that's it from this agent demo. Hey, Santosh and Kenneth, over to you if there is any question. I saw that there are a few
So
questions.
I think there's a question in the chat window.
Hi Santosh, I think you can help with answering the question from Dhananjay in the chat.
Sure. So let me read out the question and answer it bit by bit, because I think these are pretty long questions. So which LLM providers are supported? So SimplAI as a platform is model agnostic. We do support all kind of closed source models and open source models, right? Including OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Grok, right? And not just directly, but also these can be connected through hyperscalers as well. For example, if these are already there on AWS, Azure, or Vertex, those can also be connected through that. Apart from that, open source models, right? Anything that is there on Hugging Face, we can pull and connect it. You can also fine tune the data. So there's our model garden. Probably, Shashank, if you can quickly go there, right? You have one screen where you can kind of connect to closed source models, deploy and fine tune open source models.
Dari Aldap. Tapi sebagian aku udah kebagi jadi cuma 14 dari 110 cuma 14 yang dari yang ada kemungkinan dari Office 365.
Yang dimasukkan Pak Yaman,
Pak
Darwin.
Ini nih aku udah bikin. Ini aku udah bikin. Udah bikin aku kemarin itu udah bikin.
Maaf Pak Ikman ya, mungkin
Oh, sorry.
mic-nya
Sorry.
Terus saya tanya ke Pak Yadi, dia kok ID nggak mungkin main-main ke, nggak mungkin ada address book juga dari Pak Amit yang gitu-gitu.
The second part of the question, how do you handle model routing for latency versus cost optimization? For instance, can we configure the orchestrator to route basic high volume interim classification to a cheaper, smaller model and only escalate to high compute models? Absolutely. So we have the orchestration, right? And also our agents are built in such a way that planning can be done by one model and execution can be done by another model, right? And you can have tools, knowledge bases, sub agents actually added to the supervisor agent or the main agent, right? And you can then ask the supervisor agent or the main agent to kind of decide which sub agents needs to be called depending on the task, right? And within this agent, you are free to select whatever models you want, right? If you talk about workflow orchestration, you can have n number of agent nodes or LLM nodes. Each node can have its own LLM model. For example, at certain cases where it's more about a small decision, you can go ahead and use older models like GPT 4.1, right? At some places where there's a critical functionality and you require a lot of reasoning, in-depth reasoning, etc., you can use the newer models, right? So that completely is possible, right? It all depends on how we are orchestrating the entire multi-agentic system, and depending on that, you can select the models, right? That's first part. Second, right, more from a scientific way, if you go to the observability, right, you will actually see all the stats in terms of reliability, cost optimization, and latency, right? And once you go to that, right, you can actually see probably, Shashank, if you go to the credit and list example only, right, you will also see from a cost optimization point of view, right, how much of these tokens are coming from input and output, right? Whether what's the percentage of model cost versus agent runs, right? You get a lot of stats which basically help you to also decide how do you optimize it for latency and cost, right? All of those insights are readily available on the platform. For example, if you see tokens, right, 96% of the tokens are for input, 4% is for output. So you can go into some of your things and see what's the system prompt given, right? Can you optimize for it? How is it behaving? What kind of traces are giving you highest token runs? You can analyze and surface these insights directly on the platform and use those insights to make those corrections. Hope that answers your first question. Second, how does your orchestration engine handle session fragility if an agent pauses to ask a manager for authorization and the manager takes 45 minutes to reply? Does your platform use state rehydration? Yeah, absolutely. So see, any orchestration that you see on the platform, we completely handle the state management, delegations, planning, agent handoff, everything is there. And the way we handle state management is we take agent snapshots from time to time, right? So you can recover the workflow from any point of time, and we maintain the complete trace, right? Immutable trace. When you look at the tracing on the platform, you actually see the entire context passing from one step to another step, one agent to another agent, right? So everything is kind of captured in the agent snapshot. And you also have something called step level controls, right? Especially when you are building long running tasks. For example, we are working with one of the consulting firm where they do a lot of work for investment research, commercial banking, etc., where everything is a long running task, right? They run for 10 to 30 minutes at least, right? Swifting to tons of data, right? Gigabytes of data. So in that case, how do you basically maintain that entire state? That's where the entire thing comes into play, right? You have the orchestration where, as I said, agent snapshots are taken into consideration. Also, if you go into step level controls, right, you have something called as retries, what kind of errors should happen and what's the fallback mechanism, timeout limits for each limit, so that your application runs are not throttled when you put it in production, right, and scale parallelly and immensely. So all of those things are taken care within the platform, right? You don't need to worry about the scalability part of it or the reliability part of the application. It can kind of reliably give results. And moreover, from the observability side, right, again, you have the reliability stats in terms of what's failing, where it is failing, what kind of errors are coming, so you can keep correcting those before you put these applications in production. So I think if there are no questions, I just want to take a couple of minutes before I give it back to Kenneth and Shashank. I think we spoke a lot about the platform, etc. But from a business side, I just want to kind of highlight a couple of things, right, in terms of the capabilities. Some of the capabilities we have readily available on the platform, and some of the use cases we also have, so that it gives you a good picture if at all you're looking at any of the use cases. Probably we can also have a one-on-one session separately as well, right, if you feel that there's something that interests you. So from a platform capability, obviously you have seen, right, you can build this conversational AI, you can build content creation type of workflows, discovery and search kind of workflows. Your traditional IDP moving to agentic IDP. Again, we all know, right, with traditional IDP, every format needs to be kind of set up, so everything is rule defined. But the real world scenario, right, you get everything in different types of content, different types of documents. Now that is completely being handled by agentic IDP. But again, on the platform, right, within the control cost, you can actually manage all those things. Then comes the agentic RAG. The biggest of it, agentic process automation, which are nothing but your workflow automations that are happening. Voice AI can be created. For example, this can be voice-based conversations or voice calling agents as well. Vision AI. So there are multiple capabilities, and you take any application today, these are combination of at least 3-4 capabilities that exist on the platform. Some of the solutions across insurance, banking, private equity, healthcare. And mostly we focus on regulated industries, especially from the core workflows point of view. Happy to kind of have separate sessions if at all something is interesting for you, or in terms of a use case, or even if the use case is not here, if you have something in mind, more than happy to kind of explore that as well, right? These are some of the horizontal applications that we have, right from procurement, finance, HR, customer IT support, supply chain and sales and marketing, and this cut across most of the enterprises that we work with, right? I'll just take a pause. I just wanted to kind of give some kind of a layer into some of the things we already are working on. More than happy to kind of take any specific questions. Over to you, Kenneth and Sesha.
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. I think after this session, we'll share the recording, we'll share the documents, and if you guys are interested in either self-exploring the platform, we will be happy to share credits with you. If you guys have any specific problem which you want us to solve as a pilot, etc., please feel free to sort of connect with us. I'll share a 30 minutes calendar link as well, right? So yeah, I mean, let's have it this continuous discovery and problem discovery way. Kenneth, over to you. I think we are sorted from our side. I think maybe your last word could be important.
Likewise, thank you again for SimplAI team for helping us, for joining us as part of the host for this webinar. Terima kasih juga mungkin untuk Bapak Ibu semua yang sudah join di sesi hari ini. Maybe if we would like to summarize, the key takeaway from this session is that we have the real value that we can get from Agentic AI in the workflows, in the real business use cases, for the knowledge work, which is like the document heavy workflows. some of the processes are repeatable, but if we want to make the sort of AI agent, they could to do the planning, to do the dynamically do the business processes. Jadi mungkin dari workflow yang nyata untuk proses yang document heavy, yang berulang, mungkin kita tadi sempat sebut sebagai knowledge work gitu. Itu sesuatu yang sangat memungkinkan untuk kita bisa masuk ke dalam Agentic AI. And maybe just a quick bit on the enterprise, which is ketika kita masuk ke enterprise, we want to move from the demo phase to from the demo or the pilot to a full deployment. So this is something what SimplAI already has and will support through the orchestration, the governance, the scalability of the platform itself. So maybe as the team mentioned earlier, we will share the recording of the session, and maybe we will also share a form later that you could fill if there are any further questions, or you want to get in touch with us, with Kalyana and the SimplAI team, that we can do it through the form that we will share along with the recordings. Sekali lagi mungkin terima kasih untuk semua Bapak Ibu yang sudah ikut dari sesi hari ini. Izin kami tutup